Hi you guys, so I'm back today, and so I took to Twitter because I have a few videos planned for you guys, so I'm waiting for orders to kind of come in. I didn't really know what to film, so I had a little poll on Twitter that I'm going to insert here, and it looks like majority rules, so I'm going to be doing a little bit of a brow tutorial today. So what I think I'm going to do is start out with a few little tips that I learned along the way, and then do a little tutorial on like maybe one side an everyday brow, and then the right side like an Instagram perfection, like slay brow, something along those lines. So without further ado, let's get started. So I think one of the biggest things for me was to not over pluck and to not over trim. And so for me, like I used to have brows that stopped like right there, and then all this growth was for maybe like a year and a half. I used to over pluck them. I used to want to have that really straight, sophisticated brow, and it didn't really look that great on me. And I would turn this way and I would look angry just because of like the angle they were. It'd be like so, but like all the time. So I finally listened to everyone that was telling me not to pluck my brows, and I kind of let them grow in. And so now I'm happy with the little bit of arch that I do have on my brows. This one's still growing in a little bit, but I do have stitches in that one. Another tip that I have for you is to understand that brows are sisters, not twins. They will never be the same. So just like with my brows here, they are not the same, but I do try and shape them the same. I think a lot of people get frustrated because one brow is easier to do than the other, but if you guys just kind of keep at it, you will get these techniques down. Another tip for you guys is to stay away from either pomades or pencils or whatever you're using that are too light or too dark for you. But if you're working with a product like a dip brow, when you're going to like reconstruct the actual brow shape, you might want to go a shade darker. That way it won't show up so differently on the skin as it does on the brow. Because if you're using the same color for inside the brow and then on the skin, it'll look like the skin's a little bit lighter than the brow, and you'll be able to see that mark, if that makes sense. So whenever I use some sort of pomade, I usually go in for a little bit of a darker brow, a darker line like on the side there, and then go back in like you'll see today with a lighter shade in the actual brow. That way it all kind of fades together nicely. Something that I learned kind of recently is that I like to, if I do need to clean up my brows, I go in when my brows are already done. And so I will have them filled in the way that I like them, and that'll easily help me look for the stray hairs that didn't kind of help construct the brow. They weren't supporting the team, if that makes sense. And so I can easily get those hairs out and then leave the rest of the brow the way that it should be. So those are just a few of my tips and tricks, so now we are going to go right into the tutorial. So I've zoomed you guys in quite a bit, that way you can really see what I'm doing with my brows. So for right now, I'm going to be doing this brow as like an everyday brow, maybe using one or two products, and it'll only take me a few minutes. And then this brow, since it needs a little bit more work, I'll be making this one like my Instagram ready, like night out brow. And so I'll be taking a little bit more time on this one. So I think to start, I'm just going to go in and do the everyday brow. So for my everyday brow, I like to use my NYX Micro Brow Pencil. And so I'm just going to take this, I'm also in the shade Medium Ash Brown. So I have my mirror here. I'm going to try and show you guys. So first I always brush through them and kind of plan my course of action. Next, so my favorite thing to start out before I do anything else is to make sure that I have my foundation and some sort of like eye base on. I just use my concealer on the lid of my eye, and I carry it up into my brow, and then I powder everything. That way when I go in with something like this, a very fine tip pencil, it kind of just glides on. Otherwise I feel like anytime I've done my brows, it can get like caught in the skin, and it kind of makes them like crappy. So for my everyday brow with my pencil, I'm just going to take this and make a clean line from about 2 centimeters in my brow to the back toward the tail, and I'm not going to curve it. I'm just going to make that a straight line. See there? From there to there. Then once I'm happy with that, I'm going to carry it toward the front. I'm always nervous to go from the front out just because I feel like if I set the tone wrong here, the rest of the brow's done, and like it's a little more sparse up here, so it's harder for me to tell where I should put the line. But if I have the guidance of like this darker spot here, I can kind of just connect the dots. Next, I'm going to take this down into the tail I'm not going to add anything. I'm not going to like redefine the shape or anything. I'm just going to go in lightly with light, small strokes and fill in where needed. And as you're doing this, don't be afraid to blend it through. It'll give you a better idea of where you need product. Next, I'm just going to take the product all throughout the brow, and I'm not going too heavy here. I keep my hand at the very end of the product, that way my strokes are very light. So now when I'm happy with the tail and the base of the brow, I'm going to go in to the front, and I usually like to take my time with this, so I leave it for last. So the hairs in front of this brow go straight up, and so I kind of just use the same motion and go straight up. And spoolie through to blend any harsh lines. So as you can see in comparison with just one product, in a few minutes, I have filled in the brow, but it's not so filled in that it looks completely fake. I mean, you still see the natural hair there. There's still a nice gradient there from start to end. And in comparison to this brow, it's a little bit misshapen and not filled in. You can definitely see a difference, but I feel like if I just went like this, it still looks pretty natural. So next what I like to do is go in with some sort of brow gel. I'm going to be going in with the tinted brow gel just because I like to add a little bit of extra dimension if I'm not going to be using different products to really bring that gradient back into the brow. I'm going to use the Brow Stylist Plumper from L'Oreal. It's a very fine wand here, and I'm going to take the majority of the product off on the back of my hand. Any extra product I like to take off on the back of my hand. And I'm just going to use light little strokes to help hold these brows in place, but also bring a second color to the brows. Something I also like to do for the front of my brows is leave the hairs in the front straight up and kind of fluff them out a bit. It kind of just makes them look more natural. Okay, you guys, so that's it for my natural brow. So that's something I would probably do on an everyday basis if I was just going to school or work or something. And I didn't really want to take a long time on my brows, but I definitely wanted them to look more put together. So you can see in comparison, it's cleaned up, it's filled in. It still looks pretty natural in comparison to my regular side here, but it's not overdone. There's a clean line, but it's not like an extend the line and like change the shape of the brow. So next I'm going to go in with my more dramatic brow. So for this brow, I'm going to be going in with a dark pomade out here, a lighter pencil in here, and then an even lighter pencil right in there, because I really want to change the shape of this brow. So this brow I struggle with a little bit more than this one. This one kind of has that great like shape to it. Everything kind of lines up exactly the way I want it, but this one I struggle with a little bit like right up here. This is fine, but then the tail kind of falls short there. So I really need to kind of reshape everything. So first I'm just going to go with my Anastasia Beverly Hills Dip Brow in dark brown with the number 7 brush. So I'm going to barely dip my brush in there. And then same thing on the back of my hand, I'm going to go like this to either side and really clean up the sides of the brow brush here. And then take a little bit of a line. That way it kind of cleans it up and I'm not taking too much product on. And so same thing with this brow, I'm going to take it right about here, about 2 centimeters away from the front of my brow. And same thing, just one straight line. I try and keep the majority of the product toward the back of the brow, so as you can see it's really dark here and a little bit lighter here, because I like to keep it a natural gradient. Next, I'm not even going to dip it back in the product, I'm going to take whatever I have extra in my hand and deposit more color onto the brush. So next is the tail. So as you can see, the back kind of has its own shape, but I need to redefine the front here. So it may look a little crooked, but only because I do have a scar right here, and I have to go back in there, elongate this, and then bring it back down. So next I'm going to go to the top of the brow and connect everything. And I'm kind of overextended it there. I'm going to carry that line down. So I'm just going to take whatever product is left in the brush, and take it in the tail of my brow. So I have a very sharp tail, and this looks a little boxy here, but I'm going to clean that up with concealer. But I wanted this overall shape. It looks a little cartoony, but we're going to clean it up in just a second. So now that I have the overall shape in there, I'm going to take my Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Definer in dark brown and fill in from here to here. Next I'm going to go back in with my NYX Micro Brow Pencil and fill in the front. And same thing, I'm just going to do light strokes to create that gradient look. I'm going to follow the natural position of the hair to make it look more feathered. And just brush through to smooth any harsh lines. So as you can see, this brow is a little more boxy and it has more defined shape. It might even be a little bit too dark for my skin right now, but I'm going to go through and feather it with a little brush and clean everything up. If you've ever taken too much product in your brow, just take a little blending brush right here, and I like to go through and kind of just pat to take away anything extra. Next, to really clean up that brow, I'm going to do something called carving out the brow. So I'm going to take this Duo Highlighting Pencil from Anastasia Beverly Hills, and I'm going to outline the brow. I'm just taking the matte side, which acts more of a concealer. You can use a concealer if you prefer, but I like the way this one draws on. Next, I'm just going to take a flat brush and blend that in. This technique will really define the brow and help fix any mistakes you might have made along the way. It's also really great for hiding extra hairs if you forgot to clean up your brows. Next, I'm just going to take a clear brow gel for this one, because I already have the gradient through the different use of products. I don't need to bring any more attention to them in that way. Next, I'm just going to use the other side of this brow duo, and I'm going to take the highlighter side. I'm going to highlight right here in this, the high points of my brow bone. I also like to highlight right above the brow bone, right here. I feel like that's where light also gets caught. So you can see the difference. Here, this one's a little more feathery, a little more light. There's no highlight. The product is kind of evenly distributed. It's cleaned up, but it's not reshaped. And then this one is a little more boxy, a little more sharp. A little more product was used, and I highlighted the brow to draw more attention to it as well. And it's very clean, and it definitely took a little more time and a little more product. So here's the brow that I took 5 minutes to do using one product, my everyday brow. And here is the night out brow. Okay, you guys, so that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed and at least maybe learned a little something. If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe as always. I try and put out videos every Friday. And I would love to hear your comments on what you'd like to see next. Thanks for watching again. Bye.